Deep house is a genre of electronic dance music that emerged in the 1980s in the Chicago music scene. It is characterized by its use of soulful vocals, jazzy chords, and deep bass lines. DJs and producers at the time were experimenting with slower, more soulful tracks that had elements of jazz, funk, and R&B. One of the pioneers of the genre was Frankie Knuckles. He was often referred to as the godfather of dance house music. House music became popular in the 1990s and grew in popularity in Europe as well, where it was embraced by club goers and DJs alike. In the early 2000s, deep house underwent a resurgence, thanks in part to the rise of digital music production and the growth of online music distribution platforms. Today, deep house remains a popular genre and it still continues to evolve and incorporate new sounds while staying true to its soulful, groovy roots. What's the deal, YouTube? Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how I make my deep bass tracks, so let's jump straight into the FL Studio. Typical BPM range for deep house is between 118 to 128 BPM. However, the tempo can vary and some deep house tracks may have a slower or faster BPM. Tempo of deep house tracks is usually slower than tech house or progressive house. This slower tempo allows for more emphasis on the groove, the bass line, and the overall vibe of the track. I set my track to 123 BPM. This is just something that I've tried in the past. It worked for me and I like this pace. Let's go to the melodies and what I started with. And so I only played two notes, F sharp and B, just going back and forth, creating a little bit of a melodic bounce. You can see that I added little notes just right after each one of these notes, but I brought the velocity down for each of those small additions, just so it stops reverberating, because the sound of this note still continues even when the note is not playing anymore. So I wanted to reduce the muddiness, so that's what it sounds like. So exactly as the name states, it's an ambient pad. The next one is just a layer to that. So it is exactly the same note pattern, just a different sound. I'll play them both. Then I opened another instance of Analog Lab 5 and chose another bank. I added this harp. Now I'll play both ambient pads and ARP together. As far as effects, I send both ambient pads to the same channel because I wanted to process them in the same way. And I cut the lows up until low mids, sidechain with Fruity Love filter, and then I added OTT, only 33%. And then on ARP, almost the same thing with EQ. I cut the lows, added a little bit of Fruity Compressor just to take care of the peaks. I added this Coffee the Pun plugin. This is essentially saturation. You can add any saturation, even Fruity Fast Distortion works. Just make sure to adjust the mix level knob. Next, I used Contact Library Klar Duduk. So this is an ethnic instrument, essentially a woodwind. That sounds really, really beautiful, and I think it fits into that deep house aesthetic. And so here's the melody I came up with. EQ curve that I added to this melody. I have this realizer plugin from Analog Obsession, taking care of the transients. It does a bit of a pitch wobble. Next, consolidated this Clardaduc melody and then pitched it 12 cents up. I wanted to introduce this melody in one of the choruses. I ended up adding it into the last chorus of the track to add, that additional dimension of the same melody and to make the chorus that much more bigger. And I highly encourage you to watch the video until the end so that you can hear for yourself. So I send it into the mixer, added a little bit of a fresh air. This is something that you can feel, may not be recognizable on devices like phones and laptops, but if you're listening with your earbuds, earphones, headphones, this should be providing that airy type of feel. Parametric EQ, and just cut the lows up until the mids, and a little bit of the treble. I removed that because the shimmer was a little too prominent. I wanted it to be there, but I wanted it to be a little tamed. Moving on to the bass, which I have 3 of those. I noticed, in my experience, learning not only dance music, but beat making in general, professional producers and engineers are separating basses. They are separating sub bass from, maybe mid bass and high bass. And that's how they end up with multiple sounds in terms of bass. Once I started adding layers of bass and processing them differently, then I realized this is how I'm going to continue doing that, because I like the way the low end is taken care of now in my beats. Okay, so I'll play the sub bass first. Here's the EQ settings for sub bass. I added compression and I added Devil. This is a distortion plugin, only 33% mix. Second bass layer. You can clearly see the difference between the two. One of them sounds, a lot more quiet. You can only hear it in your earphones, headphones, or big speakers. Don't expect to hear the sub bass on your phone. This one is top bass. Top means higher frequencies. It sounds a lot more plucky. Here's the EQ curve for the top bass. Cut the lows where the sub sits. Turned the shelf down for the high mids and for the the treble, the highest of the high, to free up some space for the lone bass. So now I'll play both of them together now. A lot more bigger, right? Now you can hear it and you can feel it. And I wanted to keep that bass presence pretty much at all times. So I decided to add it lone bass. It stabs at the beginning of the note and then it just kind of dies down towards the end. EQ curve, so I boosted the presence, compressor by Analog Obsession, saturation by Black Box, Plugin Alliance. Now the reverb, there's no low end, so there's not going to be any mud. And Fruity Love filter, and it's just a sidechain. And on the bass bus, cut the low end up to 30 Hertz. Anything lower than 30 Hertz is unrecognizable by human ear. Solid bus compressor, and I chose the preset Mix Glue. Fruity limiter, that's for sidechaining the kick. Let me play everything that I just went over. Now moving on to drums. So here's the kick pattern. it really supposed to be repetitive. This is the essence of house music, but I added my own touch. I added additional kick in front of every third, just brought the velocity down a bit. As for processing, I boosted the 80 hertz. I brought down 532 hertz, and I cut the top snares. Here they are. Next element was percussion. Another percussion element. Then I added open hat. Another top loop. Another perk loop. I just can't get enough of them. The last melodic element is Vox, which I pulled from Contact Library Exhale. I purchased this a while ago. This is probably one of the most expensive plugins I paid for. Like, I'm still using it in some of my beats. It's a great plugin, a lot of customization, great samples and loops and slices. A lot of them are trash too, but you gotta dig for your gold. So that's what I picked. I added ambience noise, and this is very typical for house tracks. You know, it does add some life, some soul to the track. You can add any type of ambience. It could be forest noise, it could be parking lot noise, it could be just, I don't know, rustling leaves or kids playing, cars driving, anything you want. And you can bring the volume way down. Here's the ambience that I added. On the master, I have Brainworks mastering plugin, and what I do usually, I set output trim to minus 0.1 dB, so that, you know, it's limiting it at that. I boost the volume up, and I watch this volume minus 9.5 or 10.5 LUFS integrated. But this is really different for every platform out there. YouTube has its own, Spotify has its own. So depending on where you are going to upload it, integrated LUFS would be changing. So look it up on internet, and before you boost your volume all the way up, make sure that you only boost it to achieve a certain LUFS limit.